Okay, so this says, Saloni, that we are live right now, but I'm gonna wait for like a second to actually see if we have gone live. Because if we have gone live, then there's about a bunch, like three people probably watching us right now.
That's great.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to talk to
How?
you.
I know, right? Nice to talk to you virtually as well. We just hung out in New York a couple of weeks ago, so that was fun as well.
Yes, that was so good.
All right. So for people, yes, we are finally live. Great. So for people who don't know you, Saloni Gajar, introduce yourself. Please tell people about who you are.
Okay, awesome. Hi, my name is Saloni. I am a TV writer. So I cover television. I work at the AV Club right now, and I get paid to watch TV and write about TV. So it really can't get better than that.
It's amazing. And one of the big reasons why I'm speaking with Sonali right now also is because the show that we're discussing today is set in New York, the city where she lives and works.
Yeah,
Does
that's
it hit you extra hard when you see locations that you
oh,
know?
yes, all the time. We talk about this at work too because they pick some of the creepiest locations. Like locations they've had locations like, for example, a lot of scenes are set on something called the Hudson Yards, which is a building that they had to close down because people were committing suicide from those building tops, and they use that building often. So I feel like they really do such a good job choosing these locations that match kind of the themes of the show and give out these vibes that this is this big city, they're caged into in these glass buildings. It's so good. Yeah.
All right, somebody's saying hello to you, lad who was mad. Yo, hey, Saloni.
That's just exactly how I love to be greeted.
So
Hi.
excited for this. Hi, everybody. Hi, Vamsi. Okay, so Loni, initial thoughts. I know you watched the show before the rest of the world did because being a TV critic, you had access to screeners before the rest of us pedestrians could stream it in Geo Cinema on Geo Cinema in India.
Yeah.
But when did you actually finish watching the final
So,
season?
so they were not sending it too much in advance, and the finale, no one got in advance, so everyone was scrambling to watch the 90 minutes live and try to create thoughts and write about it. But for the other episodes, we got them like maybe a few days in advance each week. So it was
Okay.
very interesting because I was watching the episodes at least twice or three times sometimes.
Wow.
Each time I'm
No
like
way.
something that I didn't. And the most fun I had was watching it live, though, because that's when everyone is watching and tweeting and consuming, and I'm picking up things again that I didn't catch. So it was very exciting um, to watch even a few days in advance alone and try to come up with my thoughts because there's so much happening.
So you watched the finale as it streamed,
Yes.
रात को 9
Yes,
बजे in your
exactly.
time.
Yes, because no one was allowed to see it in advance, which I understand. They want to make sure that nothing is leaked or, by mistake, also nothing happened. So I understand, but it was very weird to wait.
Yeah, for anybody who's still not understood the concept, we're going to be discussing lots of spoilers for Succession season 4, especially the finale, the first shot, last shot, middle shot, everything. So if you've not watched it, get off this live stream and essentially get off the internet right now. What are you doing on the internet? So,
Yeah.
Loni, initial thoughts on season 4. I will begin by saying that
Yes.
I wasn't into it until the last three episodes. I think the last three episodes completely changed the show for me. The
Uh,
initial seven were really not doing it for me. Initial thoughts. Tell me.
That's very interesting because I liked it throughout. I think that they took a couple of big narrative gambles, obviously by killing off Logan so early in the season. And when someone as big as Logan is taken away from the show, you're kind of nervous about how they're going to continue this world without him. So
Yeah.
that was narrative gamble number one, and narrative gamble number two, I think, was setting each episode for basically a day in their life. It's just basically like the 10 worst days, most critical days of the Roy family, and you kind of are just seeing it one day at a time, which is not easy to pull off because why, like, it's just one day means you kind of have a limited window to tell a story.
Yeah.
But I think for me, in both cases, it paid off. They did such a good job with it. I'm very curious to know why you didn't like the early season, because I really loved it. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
So I'll tell you what. So initially, I was feeling like my attraction towards the show in season one, two, and three was that we are watching a group of super rich billionaires
Yeah.
with like their thumbs up their asses. Like they don't know what they're doing with their money. And the title of the show is Succession.
Hmm.
And I read this tweet today, which was quite accurately summing up the whole theme of the show was that the show was never about who's going to succeed. It was when Kendall is going to succeed, if Kendall is going to succeed,
Right.
and who's going to come in the way of Kendall succeeding. Because initially we just thought the first few episodes, going back to when we first watched the show, the first few episodes was Kendall is getting groomed to take the CEO
Yeah.
position, and
Yeah.
then because Shiv was not even in it, she was in politics, and Robert
Yeah.
was running the movie studio, and he was launching a rocket ship, right, back in the day,
Yes.
that
Yes.
which was not working out. So he was like
Correct.
kind of that weird guy. So they
Yeah.
were not even interested in becoming CEO until they figured out that their alternative careers were not either satisfying or working out. So
Yeah.
might as well get to this. And then cousin Greg appears. And cousin Greg's perspective was my perspective to the
Right.
show, because it's this outsider who understands perhaps from a distance how rich people live, but to see it up close was the humor,
Right.
how absolutely stupid and dumb these people are, and how much they are hell-bent on ruining their own legacy, right?
Yeah.
And you're always thinking and watching, while you're watching the show, you're thinking, I could do this, I could do this better, give me the money, give me that access, and I
That is
will
true
run
all
this
the time.
company.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me, like, brought me onto the show initially, and I loved then getting to know the characters and developing these
Mhm.
weird parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
um Season 2 it continues, season 3 it continues, you get to know a little bit, you get to know Tom a little bit, and other Jerry, and like all these like outside characters as well. But for me, season 4 just kind of felt like it was stuck in like quicksand.
Mhm.
Uh, like episode 3, obviously, when Logan Roy dies, it's very emotional. Those couple of
Mhm.
scenes, like it makes you, it chokes you up. But I was like, they're here. Like it's not moving forward. It wasn't going anywhere for me.
Mhm.
And I felt like it was stalling a little bit. And perhaps it was until they really like went like whoosh like this in like episode 8, 9, and 10. And
Yeah.
episode 8 really took off for me.
Yeah,
That's what.
I think partly it might be because of what I was saying, in that it's a very limited window. You're just seeing one day in their life, so there's not too much It's like very contained, which is
Yeah.
which I agree with. It could be like too much, and like Greg part two, like you said, he was our window into the lives of these weirdos, a
Yeah.
slightly realistic perspective. But I found, and as much as I feel like he was a little bit underutilized this season, I do think that his perspective changing makes sense because he was so like indoctrinated into their world at this point because of Tom, because of his own desire for power. He was suing Greenpeace like for his
Like, see,
inheritance.
that was so fun. Like, my inheritance, my grandfather's giving my inheritance to Greenpeace, and I'm going to sue them. But my
Yeah,
favorite revelation about Greg from this season, two moments.
yeah,
One, obviously, when he slaps Tom, which was just a long time
yeah,
coming.
yeah,
And second, when you find out that he earns $200,000 a year,
to
that's
do
his paycheck
something.
to
Yeah,
do nothing.
correct. Yeah, makes sense in the media world out here, I will say. Like a
Does
lot
it?
of
Do you know enough people who earn $200,000 a year and do nothing?
yeah, I know people who earn much more than that to do nothing. It makes sense. It tracks to me, that part. So I, again, that's another observation that I do have, is that weirdly Succession really nailed how media is depicted.
Really?
The newsroom scenes, the way it's handled. It's, in season 2, there's a scene where Kendall fires off the whole staff of this a digital publication called Walter. It is
Volta.
my
It's like a
daily
BuzzFeed
nightmare. Correct. It
stand-in.
was my daily
Yeah.
nightmare out here too. Like in general, I feel like a lot of journalists here, when we met a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how the journalism business is kind of in crisis right now because of all the layoffs happening. And that episode, I'm still scared to rewatch because it'll
Wow.
kind of anxiety
It
that
felt that real, huh?
yeah. So I feel like they weirdly did get a lot of these things right. And of course, the whole thing is how the family is inspired by the Murdoch family. And, that's very interesting. So I feel like Jesse Armstrong, the creator, really
What a
hit
genius.
those spots. Yeah. What a genius.
What a
Exactly.
genius. I have to highlight Nitro's comment here. Everyone just forgot about the Pierce deal, which was being discussed in the beginning of season 4. Because so that was also pissing me off a little bit. Because like in the previous season, all of season 3 was about will they, won't they? Are they gonna get in bed with Pierce? Are they gonna buy Pierce? Like, that was building up from like season 2, I think. And then
Yeah.
here it just felt like, what are you doing with this subplot?
Yeah.
I was very upset about that, and then it never comes up until the
I know. It
end of
never
the,
comes up.
like.
Yeah. I have to remind that bothered me too. And then I had to remind myself, I was like, okay, that maybe happened just a week ago for them. Like, and since then, Logan has died. They've had a funeral. They've had this. So, like, nobody cares. And my understanding is that that whole plot I hate that it didn't come back. But my
Yeah.
understanding is it was a sign or just another way for the show to just say these people are fools. They have no idea what they're doing. They just spent $10 billion to buy a company with money that they don't have, with money they think they're gonna get.
But now they have
Mhm.
the money.
Yeah, now they have the money. That's true.
Now they will buy Pierce and run it
Yes,
into the ground, I
yeah,
suppose.
100%, exactly, 100%.
Do you agree with the choice of ending the show now? Or do you think we should have gone into another season to
I
see what they do with Pierce?
I do think we could have had another season. Like, I guess partly it's me speaking as a fan of the show. I don't want to leave these characters a parasocial relationship, like you said. I don't want to leave this world. But I think that it's always good when a show ends when they're at their peak, because there's a chance it might not be as good when when it's stretched out, and b,
Yeah.
whenever a show ends on terms of the creator as opposed to like being cancelled randomly, at least there's some amount of satisfaction. So while I do feel like the show could have continued and we could have easily gotten away with one more season, I'm happy, I'm satisfied that it like ended.
Which character do you most want to hug
Oh my,
and tell it's going to be okay?
I mean, I think based on that closing shot, I want to say Kendall, but it's hard to have some sympathy for him after he responds to Shiv saying, "You killed someone with a witch." That was the moment I was like, "Oh, stop!" Like I was feeling that about Roman. I felt so much
Yeah.
empathy for him throughout the season because he's clearly the most devastated by his father dying, and he has no idea how to kind of live in that world. But
Yeah.
then in the election episode, he reminded me of what a despicable person he is. So it's like these characters are horrible.
I love that none of them have a redemption arc. You are not supposed to like Kendall, Roman, or Shiv at the
Also,
end of it.
yes.
They're all terrible, horrible people. And in that sense, the show remains true
Mhm.
to what it promised in the beginning. It's like the White Lotus, right? You're not supposed to like any of these guests, and even by the end of the show, you're not going to like any of these guests, and
No.
that's what makes it so amazing, and it makes it so like intentional. I
So,
love that about the show. I'm going to throw up some scenes on the screen
yeah.
now, and whatever the scenes remind you of in the moment, let's get into it. Guys, this is a fully like not structured conversation. This is not a deep analytical academic look into the show. This is just two fans talking about the show and people we would most like to hug. I think I would most like to hug Roman. We'll come to
Fair
that.
enough. Yeah, we'll come to that.
Yeah, chalo. So let's look at some of the scenes I'm going to throw up randomly.
Oof.
Episode 3.
Yeah, Crusher. I think
The
it's a piece of television, in my opinion.
So
Definitely my favorite.
everybody who's watching right now, also please throw up your comments about this scene, and I will throw them up on the screen. Saloni, batao, scene ke bare mein initial, how did you feel?
I am such a glutton for misery. As soon as I finish the episode, I rewatch the whole thing again. As
No
soon as,
way.
because I had to write
Khatam
about it.
karte.
Khatam karte, exactly. Because I knew I had to write about it, and I knew I wanted to write about it because it was such a masterfully executed episode of television where for the first 30 minutes you're like, is Logan pranking them? Is it? We don't see a dead body. We don't see anything. Like, is he just messing with his kid? So until we actually see that in the plane, kind of I was sitting on the edge of my seat. And then I think what struck to me most and what I also wrote about for work is just how each character's grief is depicted. And that
Sure,
sudden grief when it hits you and you don't know how to act, you don't know how to respond. I think
sure.
it was masterfully executed. Definitely the best episode of the season for me.
I think we should have just caught on to the foreshadowing in episode 3 as well, considering the only person who was with Logan when he died was Tom.
Yes.
He held his hand into the afterlife, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And then Tom also says later on that I found him in the toilet. I don't know if he was actually telling the truth to Greg when he says it to him in the corner of a room.
I
But
think
that was
it's true because I think he says that to Shiv later too. And I think that when he says it to Shiv later is when we see that he's kind of, emotionally processing it still. Because
the
again,
show
it
is
happened a week ago.
it's foreshadowing, right? The writing is trying to guide us, not just very subtly. What did you think of the decision of having Logan die away from the children and them not being with him in his final
I
moments?
think it perfectly fits the show because they were not close. I
Beautiful.
think it's kind of even more painful that it happens than the morning after, their karaoke scene at night when all of them are finally having that one conversation when
Yeah,
Logan says maybe the best thing and the truest thing he's ever said, which is that I love you, but you're not serious people. And
yeah.
then the rest of the episode just proves it. They really are not serious people. So
That
I
is the
think,
line of the season, I think.
yeah, totally. What did you think?
Moonstruck Crab says, even during the funeral scene, I thought Logan is going to come back and say he was pranking them and tell them how useless they are.
It's,
My favorite thing about the funeral scene was when they go to the crypt that he had purchased for himself. And
Mhm.
then Kendall asks, how much did he pay for this? And someone says 5
Yeah,
million. And
Yes.
Kendall says, good deal. And Shiv
Yeah.
says, good deal. You paid $5 million to die.
Yeah. That makes sense for them. Totally.
Vamsi says, incredibly directed. The three siblings talking on the phone and moving around was shot so well. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, a lot of the, I feel like a lot of that too, again, a lot of what I liked about the season, not only is it contained in terms of the, one day, a lot of the episodes, if you look back, are contained in terms of its setting. It's very like
Sure.
a stage play situation. This episode almost entirely happens in that tight, like, boat or like
Yeah.
a plane setting. The episode right after that, where everyone, Masha comes back, everything tight setting of that apartment where they
Yeah.
decide that Kendall and Roman are going to be cozy. So every scene, even the house party where Shiv and Tom on the balcony are going off of at each other, contains scene. The church, the funeral. So I feel like that adds that element of, oh my god, these we are really in their world. We are immersed in it. It was very interesting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point to bring up. The observation that you make, it's all contained in small spaces and things like that. All right, great. So, let us. Oh, this broke my heart. Also, the tragedy of Connor with the loony cake. Again, it was the same episode, episode
Yeah.
three, and I think I had forgotten what happened to Connor's mother. Maybe it was alluded to in the previous seasons. I
Yeah.
had completely forgotten why Connor's mother was not in the picture.
Yeah.
And this episode reminds you what Logan Roy did to Connor's mother, and I'm like, what a bastard.
Oh,
Any semblance of this episode is also telling you that we're about to show you that this character is going to die, but we're telling you before, on top of the episode, you're not to sympathize with him.
yes.
He was a bad guy. So
Yeah.
they tell you at the beginning of the episode that Connor is having a weird reaction to the wedding cake because it's bringing him like PTSD from the time when he was a child and his mother was sent away to the mental facility, and they've kept feeding him cake to distract him
Jeez. That's just
right at the beginning of the episode. And then it goes to a point where Logan dies, and you're like, I've just been given this information to tell me how bad this guy is. That's masterful writing, no?
totally, totally, absolutely. Even the beginning of the episode, it starts off with him testing Roman, right? To see if Roman will fire Jerry because he knows exactly how his son feels about Jerry. So I feel like it's interesting. Yeah, masterful
What a
writing.
bastard, losing his mind towards the end of it. All right,
Yes,
so let's take more comments. San Authorized says pitch perfect performance for all three in the reactions to the death.
yeah,
100%.
yes,
Snehal says always, always, always when they're going to kill an important character, they will have scenes and crucial character building scenes that remind you of how they've been, and then bam, they're killed.
yeah.
Snehal, did you actually think in the beginning of that episode that Logan's going to die in this episode? I didn't think so.
No,
But yeah. Uh, when Connor says, I don't need love, it's like a superpower. I think everybody's hearts have broken for Connor more than anyone else this season,
yeah,
no?
it has. But I'm also happy for him because he kind of thankfully, like, is nowhere near being the president, of course, but also has kind of accepted that, okay, he's got Willa, that's probably all he needs, even though she
Yeah,
clearly is not interested in staying with him long term,
yeah.
whatever. But I think he's found sort of he's like embraced whatever he actually doesn't need his family. It was very interesting.
This is also very funny. Marsha selling Connor his own house because, like, she
Mm,
says it to him right away, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And
yeah,
poor
and now
Connor,
that apartment is going to look fully different with like
cow print couch, babe,
exactly, yeah,
love. Okay, let's go on to this. Now the change in the arc, storytelling, narrative wise, after the death occurs. Your
yeah.
observations.
I mean, I think anytime Succession, especially in the season, has shown the brief moments of the siblings bonding, as much as I've loved it because it somewhat humanizes them, somewhat, it's like a sign to me that it's all going to crash in such a horrible way. So even when they're hugging here, I was like, oh, like they're finally maybe going to come together. And
Yeah.
then, pretty much immediately by the end of the next episode, that evaporates.
That
It's
that's happened throughout the show since the
yeah,
first
throughout the
season, right?
exactly. Yeah. It just escalated now, I think, because now that one person they were holding on to, like that, is also gone. So, like, it's just like nothing tethering them. It was, yeah.
Just think of the great tragedy at play here. Every single time the siblings come together, it's because of their father. Whether their father has had a stroke, whether their father has decided to cut them out of the business, and which was the end of episode three,
Yeah.
when that beautiful line comes, we just walked in on mom and dad fucking us.
Yeah.
Uh, whether it is them conspiring against their father, every single time they actually do come together, it's
Yeah,
because of their father.
yeah.
And right up till the end, they keep trying to come together, but it never actually happens because they're not actually coming together for the right reasons.
No, never. And they just, I like it's they just use their words and their informations to really hurt each other in ways that just cannot be healed as much as
Yeah,
they superficially pretend that it's working.
yeah. Sophia says this was a powerful season and superb series finale, but I really think the election episode did not need to be that focused towards the end of the season. What do you think?
I mean, see, I was here during the 2016 election when Trump was elected. So for me, this
Yes.
episode was super triggering. I was watching it at work. My
Yes.
coworkers didn't know what I was watching because I got the episode early. And so, like after half an hour, my coworker who sits next to me tapped me and said, "You realize your full body is shaking. You're shuddering." And I'm just like, because of like I'm getting PTSD. What's like this was crazy how accurate it was and how scary it was. I get like they couldn't not have the election. It's just that something they had to have it. It was there since season 3, them handpicking Jared Mencken to be the like it was just they had to have it. Could it have happened sooner in the season? Probably, but I think Logan's death kind of took the focus and so did the Gojo deal. So I was okay with that. Um,
Yeah.
I just feel like that episode was too emotionally accurate, too scary.
I loved that they spent so much time on the
Yeah,
election
it
because
was fun.
that's what I was waiting for. Because we know going into the season, Connor is standing up for president. And obviously, that's not something that Jesse Armstrong and other writers have just put in there as a
Yeah,
whatever. It's obviously a setup for something that's going to be really funny and tragic and devastating at the same time. And I really wanted to get to it faster. And hello,
yeah,
sexy Tom shows up when the election coverage happens. He suddenly becomes this
okay.
like sexy, in control super boss
He's doing his job,
who
sort of.
doing his job well.
Yeah,
I didn't think that he was bad at his job at running the network. He was taking the right calls. He was, and then in another scene with Shivan, he also says later on, because I'm so anxious and I'm so insecure, I work really hard and
mhm,
I'm always concerned that it's going to be taken away from me. And you
yeah,
see that in the ATN episode at the bullpen where he is in control. Why? I think because Logan is dead.
right.
Because right before that, I think 2 episodes before that, when Logan comes down to the bullpen and Tom doesn't quite know how to introduce him to the whole team and he's kind of jittery. But
Yeah,
when Tom comes down to the bullpen himself during the election episode, he is suddenly in control of the whole damn operation. That's
yes,
more foreshadowing that
yes,
this is his domain and he is going to take
yeah,
over this
yeah,
fucking thing by
yes.
himself.
Yeah, that's such a good observation. And I think, like you said, he's the only one who's actually working. We've never seen the three other siblings actually work.
Yeah.
Um, Forget whether they're bad or good at it, they're definitely bad at it, but we've never actually seen them do it. And I think even in the next episode, he misses Logan's funeral to work. And I
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
that kind of is something that Lucas probably he asked Shiv, right? Where's your Tommy boy? And I think just that kind of registers that
I just thought Matthew McFadden is like the finest actor this season. I mean Jeremy Strong, sure, amazing. Obviously we love Jeremy Strong, and in the sense of the word, he is the kind of lead character of the show, the leading actor of the show. Even though they've submitted Kieran Culkin for like
both
one
have
of the main,
both have
both
submitted
of it submitted.
in
Okay,
lead, and I think Matthew is in supporting, which he will probably win.
right. But I thought Matthew McFadden was just freaking
So he was
phenomenal
kind
this
of like
season.
your actor of the season.
Yes, for
Okay.
me, like it was Greg in season one, and it's this season. It's Tom Wormskins,
Okay. The
100%.
character or actor?
Actor, Matthew McFadden. I
Okay.
thought he was just every twitch of his face, and I was observing him so closely because Tom has the best arc, according to me, this season, the most interesting arc and the most evolving, developing arc this season.
Okay.
For a reason, because the writers were like, we're going to build him towards this great
Okay.
climax. And I
Yeah.
was observing him very closely, every twitch of his face, every move of his hand. I like to see an actor, you like you
Full body performance.
you try to figure out what are the tricks they're using to get into this scene, what are the tricks they're using to get out of this scene. Their voice is changing, their hand movements are changing, the body. He was just so good, flawless, completely flawless.
Yeah.
uh Moonstruck Cab says, I thought it was an amazing backdrop to highlight more of their characters, what each of them was prepared to do to win. Yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Faisal says, what this show masterfully depicts is even billionaires have the luxuries of life, how miserable their lives can be. They can, even they don't get time to grieve Logan's death. Okay, so shall we move on to another random scene?
Totally.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is one Saloni has picked out. Please set it up and tell us why you've picked this scene.
So why I picked it, I kind of this scene is maybe gonna be one of my favorite Shiv and Tom scenes because I think that so in the first three seasons, Shiv and Tom are as much as they're together, they're married, blah blah blah. They're never real with each other. Even
Yeah.
when they are, it's very fleeting, very very fleeting. It's a conversation, and then they forget that they were real with each other. But I think by this point of the show, when this happens, this bitey game, this ridiculous, toxic thing that they do, I think by that point they have just everything is kind of all their cards are out on the table. And then of course in the next episode is when the balcony scene happens, which is another Shiv and Tom favorite scene of mine.
Yeah.
Because at that point they are so honest with each other that nothing matters.
Yeah.
They can say and do whatever they want. They can be free with each other. There's some kind of like the burden has kind of gone off of their shoulders. Like everything has been said, things are clearer, and they can just be honest with each other and do something like this at a party, where everyone
Yeah.
is this is them being weirdly real. Like this is something maybe two weirdos would do at the beginning of their relationship. It's weird, it's sexy, it's toxic, it's so deranged. Like you don't do it at this stage in their relationship, but both of them doing it now is such a weird significance of them being honest with each other. At least that was my interpretation of it.
Were you hoping Tom and Shiv are going to end up together?
I mean, they kind of do,
But
but
were you hoping through the runtime that they'll reconcile?
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, this whole season is such a rom com for them in the worst possible way. Um, and I appreciated that they showed Shiv finally being vulnerable with Tom on the phone because she
Yeah.
pretty much says the same thing that at this point, is there some positive out of this nightmare that we've shared?
We've
Which is a
shared.
great
What a
line.
great line.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. And I feel like that I appreciate it because I think it's probably the first time she's been this vulnerable with him. Um,
Ashnik makes a great
yeah.
observation that I also made through one of the episodes is that Tom uses an Android phone. He doesn't use an iPhone. And
Oh, there
everyone
you
else
go.
uses an iPhone. And I
Mhm.
observed that during one of the ATN episodes, and I was like, that's an interesting
Yeah.
character note.
Yeah, totally. And
Why
also,
does he not have an iPhone? I don't know,
have,
because he's an outsider.
yeah, yeah, maybe.
I don't
I think
know.
the themes are real with that one because he came into it, and even in season one, maybe even in season two, when Logan tells Shiv, "Oh, I'm choosing you," Tom's reaction was, "I thought we were gunning for me to be this, kind of
Yeah,
take over this role," which at that time seemed insane to me.
yeah.
But I think
But
season four did such a good job, like you said, that arc evolution of Tom to make it make sense.
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, finally got the balls to stand up to Shiv. I mean, it's not like he is standing up to Shiv so much as he's like standing up for himself because Logan is dead.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
awoken something in him, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that balcony scene was just so brilliant. Oh,
Oof,
yeah.
oof. McFadden's dialogues are particularly amazing this season. He's so good. He's so good, and it's so weird to like watch interviews with him and particularly him and Sarah Snook because they have like these foreign accents,
Yeah.
non-American accents, and he's British and she's Australian, and it's so bizarre to hear them do these interviews.
Yeah.
Jeremy Strong, I don't think I can see him do anything else ever again, or Kieran Culkin for that matter.
Yeah. I know.
That's
Kieran
just
Culkin
so
was
good.
my actor MVP of the season. He was
Tell
my
me why.
I mean, I think, see, all of them are really good. And Kieran Culkin has always been such a perfect Roman.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that this season they finally gave him material that's a little different, that evolves Roman a little bit more. That Madsen scene too, it's so good. Um, that was
on
my
the
first thing, even after the react, like the finale. Kieran, I think, was such a full body actor when the show starts. He's like
yeah.
moving his hands and like expressing so much with his body, but I think this season he was really committed to expressing more with his face, with his emotions, him breaking down at the funeral. Even that finale scene that I was talking to you about earlier, just that 2 seconds at the bar at the very end,
Yeah.
when he's ordering Jerry's favorite drink and smiling. He's
Yeah.
there's sadness, there's confusion, uncertainty, relief,
Yeah.
everything. and he does it all in 2 seasons. I think that this, while everyone has always been good, this was Kieran's season because he finally kind of got more to work with. He
Yeah.
had that before also, of course. But I think this season, especially after Logan's death, he did something magical with Roman that I didn't see coming.
My before I tell you about my favorite Kieran Culkin moment of the season is, I want everyone who is watching us right now to type in the comment section what your favorite Roman moments were this season. Kieran Culkin's
So many.
favorite best performance of the season. Please type in the comments and I will put it up on the screen. For me, it was the hug
Mhm.
in the last episode when we've already been shown that this guy likes to hurt himself in order to feel something, because his whole life he has been denigrated,
Abused, pretty much.
abused,
Yeah.
physically abused, and mentally abused, because we've seen Logan Roy actually slap him, in previous episodes. And because he's like the short stature, he's a
Mhm.
short man, I'm
Yeah.
sure he was kicked around a lot when he was a child. So he's got all these insecurities about himself, which is why he keeps saying, I'm pre grieved.
Yeah.
And then when the moment arrives, when he actually sees his father's coffin, he loses his mind because obviously he's not pre grieved.
No.
He's just trained himself to hide his real emotions away.
Yeah.
The hug, final episode, we have been shown that not Kieran, Roman requires pain to feel alive. And
Mm.
when we were shown that was the rally right after
Mhm.
the election results were declared by ATN. There is a left democratic, I think, rally of
Yeah.
people protesting against the elections.
Yeah.
And he goes right in the middle, and he, like, when someone tries to help him, he asks them to fuck off. He goes into the stampede, you're concerned that someone's going to step over him, and people do step over him, he gets hurt, and then he flies away to Barbados, right? Barbados is where his mother is, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Mhm.
In the last scene, you don't know what's going on with the brothers, but in that moment, Kendall understands Roman so deeply. He understands Roman so well. He
Yeah.
knows that right now, Roman is pretty much a glob of nothing in his hands.
Mhm.
And whatever he says or does to Roman is now going to change the outcome of this day. His fatal mistake, Kendall's fatal mistake in that moment, is underestimating that Shiv can also flip flop
Yep.
and spending some time with her, because
Yeah.
throughout the season it's been the brothers are co-CEOs. We are going
Right.
to take over, and Siobhan doesn't have the experience, and that was their one fatal mistake of underestimating her. So he hugs Roman, and he hugs him so tight, and you don't know where this moment is going. Maybe Roman's really breaking down, and Kendall's really like forcing him to like cry on his shoulder. But you realize in 10 seconds that Kendall was breaking open the stitches on Roman's head,
Yeah.
because short of Roman hitting his own head on a wall, those stitches were not going to open. And Kendall felt like it was his responsibility to allow his brother to feel emotion on that day.
Yeah. It was
Like,
very,
what a great
yeah.
piece of writing, man.
Yeah. Great piece of writing, and also their execution of it is so flawless because I feel like in weaker hands, this much wouldn't have come across. Like your
Yeah,
observation is so astute, but if they wouldn't have done it, it wouldn't have come across.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if we've got any
Yeah.
people. Kieran saying,
Oh.
can we take him out? Oh, Nikhil's trying to join us. I'm going to see if Nikhil can hear us and see us. Hi, Nikhil.
Hi, Sucharita.
Hi, meet Saloni, but your internet connection's damn weak, huh, Nikhil?
How weak is it? Can you hear me? You see me? I can
No,
hear
I
you and
can't.
see
I
you.
can I can hear you or see you, but you are like very like breaking up.
Okay, if I break up, then you tell me because I'm outside.
I
But
can't
I
hear
can hear
you.
you perfectly.
I
You
can't
can't
hear
hear
you.
me
No,
at all.
it's like breaking up. आ
Okay,
रहा
let
है
me
जा
try
रहा है
again.
आ
Let
रहा
me
है
try.
जा रहा है.
Let me try again. Let me try.
Yeah, try to log out and log back in. Let's see what people are saying about Kiran. Kiran Kalkin will take the Emmy this year, do you think?
I think so. I just wrote over 1,000 words about it that went up this morning, but I do think Kieran Culkin will win. And
Who are
I'm
the other contenders this year for the Emmy?
Jeremy Strong is obviously the main contender. There's a chance
Bill
Brad
Hader?
might sneak in. Bill Hader will be there for comedy, of course. In drama, I think the other big competitors will probably Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us and Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul's
Better
final.
Call Saul.
Yeah, which is
You
also,
really think that they'll give it to Kieran over Better Call Saul?
I do think there's a very good chance. Yeah, I do think. I
Oh,
think they might
okay.
even give it to him over Jeremy. Maybe it's my bias speaking because I really want him to win. But I do think,
You want Kieran Culkin to win over Jeremy?
yes, for this season.
Uh,
Sorry.
team Jeremy, babe. Team Jeremy. I'm team Ken, baby.
I know.
Uh, dude, Aryan Mayad is just like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right also, but like he's got so much riz.
Yeah.
He's
So
so hot.
yeah, I wish we had more Stewie for sure.
More Stewie. We barely got any Stewie this season. Roman moment was the cry in the funeral scene, and also when Kendall hugs him. This was Kieran's season for sure. He roughly goes into the classic stages of grief, from denial on the boat to acceptance in the
Yeah,
end. Kieran Culkin was seesawing so much with his emotions. He went from vulnerable to mean to second guessing. It was amazing to watch, and you cannot guess what he would do next.
I agree.
Let's see who else. Tanveer, last part when he actually tells the truth, everyone is bullshit. Yeah, I mean that was finally Roman being like, "We're all fucking idiots. None of us knows what we're talking about."
Yeah.
Nikhil, I'm gonna try and add you to the stream in like 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Just when I think Roman couldn't shock me more, he comes out with incest jokes. Well, he's been doing incest jokes since like the first episode. He's always done incest jokes.
Yeah.
For me, it has to be the funeral speech scene where I think that pushed him to actually sit with his emotions and in the end turned out to be the wisest. What do you guys think will replace Succession at HBO? House of the Dragons and The Last of Us are fine, but which one will be the show? At this point, I'm going to bring in Nikhil. Hi, Nikhil Taneja.
Hi, Sucharita Tyagi.
How are you? You've not met Saloni before, no? Saloni writes for the AV Club,
Hi, nice to meet
I
you.
have nice to meet you.
Oh,
and
I'm
Saloni's
speaking
literal
from a
profession
very
is to watch Succession,
well,
oh,
TV.
wow.
all
That makes
TV.
sense. I've joined in from my salon because I have an event tomorrow and I was getting a haircut and I realized that if by the time I reach Starbucks, it will be the stream will be over. So I'm in a room in my salon. I'm, I'm here to talk to you about Succession because it's the greatest show ever, and I cannot have missed this. So that's
Tell
my
me,
passion. That's my pitch for how much I love it.
okay, tell me initial thoughts about this season of Succession, man.
I'm reeling. I feel like how Roman said in the beginning that he's pre-grieved Logan's death, and then he breaks down at the funeral. That's what's happening to me right now because I feel like I pre-grieved the last season of Succession, thinking that I'm going to be fine, and now it's over,
Yeah.
and I am Roman at the funeral where I'm just like, is it over? Is it in there? Is it done? Uh, so yeah, I mean it's been. I can't believe the ending. I mean, it makes complete sense. It makes complete sense, and yet it is so tragic. I mean, it is happening to a person who, as Siobhan said, isn't someone who would have been able to actually be good at the job. We know that Kendall would have fucked it up the first time he would have seen, a low over there. He would have gone into deep depression. He would have blown up the company. And at the same time, this whole thing, this entire story was about whether or not Kendall's going to get it, and he didn't get it. And it's such a tragedy, but that's also life. And he sucks, so he shouldn't have gotten it. But I can't believe that Jesse Armstrong and the writers' room has made us care about these not so nice and people in such a strong way that even when they lose, like they should, you are heartbroken. So I am heartbroken. Yeah, I don't think I've been so upset over a show ending in the way that it did over any show, I think. Except for How I Met Your Mother. I was very upset about the How I Met Your Mother ending. I don't think she should have died. Just sucked. But yeah,
That was a cop out. That was a different
that
kind
was
of
a cop out.
upset. That was a different kind of upset. Like, how could you do this to people who watched your
Yeah.
stupid show for so many stupid years?
Yeah, even
Let
so
us
for that
talk
matter,
about.
even Game of Thrones was the ending was upsetting because they fucked it up. This was upsetting because it was right, and
It
that's the
was so
tragedy.
good. It
It's
was so good.
tragic that this is the way that it ended. It ended in the absolute right way, and it could not have ended. When they had that little this amazing moment of sibling bonding at the in the middle of the episode, where where all of them are together. They're having this concoction, which apparently Kendall, and actually
Jeremy Strong actually
did
drank.
take, the actor actually did take it, Jeremy Strong. But just when that was happening, I kind of knew that the ending is going to be terrible, because if you've given us such a beautiful moment in the middle of the show, the ending cannot be happy. Like if it would have been a happy ending, then the rest of it would have been terrible. But because it was terrible, I knew it couldn't have been happy. So I was already prepared for it, the worst kind of ending. But I think it just broke my heart, honestly.
Saloni, thoughts on this scene in Barbados? Firstly, thoughts on Kieran Culkin showing up in a $14 Walmart
Wow.
t-shirt.
Love. I feel like in my mind he went to Barbados with no plan.
No
And
clothes. These are probably like his childhood clothes that
yeah,
he's found in some cupboard, and because
yeah,
he's still small, he fits into them.
exactly.
$14 Walmart t-shirt. It's also making a commentary on how like his mother and Peter just don't have money, and they're always coming up with
Yeah.
schemes
Yeah.
to like make more money. So thoughts on the scene?
I mean, firstly, fun fact, this was the last scene the three of them filmed for the show, which I just
Yeah,
they ended on somewhat of a funny, ridiculous scene.
yeah.
But yeah, like Nikhil was saying, when I saw the scene, I was like, oh, things are gonna crash so bad. But,
Hard.
but kudos to Succession, because once again, I was so sucked into this moment where I was like, oh, they're like these little siblings, they're so cute, they're just having fun, they're making noise. Kiran is licking cheese. It's
Little
so
siblings, she
cute.
says.
Yeah, because see, I thought of, to be honest, what I thought of, they're being loud. Their mom is coming and telling them, "What are you all doing?" Like they're children basically. Their child is coming out, and I kept thinking of Shiv's funeral speech for Logan, where she says that the three of them would always make noise outside their dad's office to be heard,
Yeah,
get that
yeah,
attention.
Yeah.
And this felt like the adult manifestation of that, where they
yeah.
just are going crazy. And meal fit for a king, which looks disgusting, and then she spits in it. Like this is exactly what they probably did as children.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Uh, yeah, it was such a great scene. I think I cried a little bit because again, the trepidation, how terribly it's going to go from here. Because you're in your heart of hearts, you're like, oh, great, they're getting together. But in your heart of hearts that it's
That's
not
the last.
ideal. The but it's so beautifully written. Every single line, licking Peter's cheese, and his mother saying he gets so boring about it. Like who talks like that? But I fucking love it when she says, "Oh, he gets so boring about it.
Yeah,
Here, eat some." Knobbies and like mother, what are knobbies? And she's the ends
yeah,
of the bread. Like, why is she storing the two ends of the bread loaf in her freezer?
yeah,
What kind of a hard life is she living in the middle of this place where she's saying, oh, the walls are leaking, we're saving bread, there's nothing to eat in the fridge. I thought that was really, really fascinating as well. Let's see what else we've got. We've already discussed this, his last scene. Funeral scene. Chalo, Nikhil, come talk to me about the funeral scene where Roman actually first we realize how much he's hurting.
And I cried so much. I can't, like, I cannot believe that this show, which is about capitalism and terrible billionaires who are ruining our world, evil human beings in many ways, who don't really care about the loss of life, who are just for them, who are cruel in so many different ways. And yet, when they portray loss, when they portray grief, when they portray hurt, when they portray empathy, you can't help but recognize the damage in them, right?
Yeah,
That damage in some ways relatable. Like I read this random tweet somewhere, it's come to my mind, where it says that, do you think all of Indian families is also succession, but
yeah,
without the money? Like it's still the same kind of parental abuse, and like people fighting with their siblings, and everyone being angry and dysfunctional all the time, except we just don't have that kind of money. But I think that's what it is, right? Like somewhere it is. I mean, hopefully none of us have had this kind of a cruel father, but a lot of people have had to deal with patriarchy growing up, all genders growing up in many many different ways. So when Roman, you know who has kind of gotten out of a toxic relationship with the person that he was in a toxic relationship with, dying,
yeah,
ultimately also cannot forget the fact that he was his father, and he was the person that, you know at whenever he could, did give him love, and or for that matter, there was a kind of love that he is never going to get, that he could have gotten had he been alive a little longer, right? Like all of these siblings have been waiting for that one moment where Logan will actually, as I think Shiv said, that will shower sunlight on them, and
Yeah.
but that moment's never going to come now. So it's only darkness that they've seen. And when the possibility of hope, the possibility of sunlight is now gone with him dying, and that's the grief, right? The grief isn't just that their father has died; it's that any last hope that they would have had of him being kind to them is also now
Yeah.
gone. They just have to live with his evil throughout.
Don't you think it's also fascinating that Roman is the only one who's not been given a romantic partner at all this season? There is not even any like flirtation with Jerry, barring like one or two moments. He's not been given any romance or any other avenue of love except what he was beginning to get from his father right before his father dies, which is why when Roman shows up in Barbados at his mother's house, it breaks my heart because he's wearing a $14 Walmart shirt. He's reverted back to his childhood. He's gone back to a place where he's now physically, outwardly also saying, I need love. I need to be caressed. I need to be held. And I don't have that. So I've had to fly here to
Yeah,
maybe one night he's put his head in his mother's lap and cried, and she is too proud to actually say it out loud, and he's
yeah,
too proud to ever admit it. But who knows what happened the night before Shiv and Kendall showed up. I
Yes.
thought Kieran Culkin, when he begins to turn into like a human person towards the end, uh yeah,
these are
when he
deeply
says,
broken and deeply damaged people, and I think there was also somewhere a competition between them, who's the most damaged of them all, right? And you'd
yeah,
always thought it is Kendall, and somewhere you realize that perhaps it was Roman. At least Kendall was able to, through his outward depression and outward mental health symptoms, was able to at least find people around him who were worried for him. Whereas Roman, I mean, his way of dealing with this was humiliation, humiliating himself, and taking that abuse. That last scene of, oh God, Kendall, pressing his wound on his shoulder. What a tough
yeah,
scene to watch. What a
yeah,
scary
very
thing to
hard,
watch.
very hard.
And the thing is that you are first thinking that, Kendall's become Logan. And then second, you just suddenly start realizing, no, it's Kendall being an older brother and giving Roman what he needs, which is humiliation. He
And pain.
needs that
We
hurt
were just
and
discussing this
pain.
before you joined. He needs
Yeah,
pain to be able to feel something. We were
yeah.
just discussing
It's
this. You know who, in my opinion, turned into Logan? Fucking Tom. And we should have seen this from the start. The way Tom humiliates Greg, not in this season, since season one. He
Beginning.
throws things at Greg. He calls him names. He really treats him like a little bitch. Tom is Logan Roy. He is someone who's come from nothing, and just by like, well, Logan probably was not somebody who would suck the biggest dick in the room. Tom has
correct.
his own methods, but he's somebody who's come from nowhere, and we should have seen it. He was the only person who held Logan's hand as Logan died. He abusive towards Greg the whole time, and he wanted a family, he wanted a child, like, I don't know, whatever. I felt like Tom really turns into Logan the most, because even at the end of season 3, Tom is the one who fucks everyone over and goes and tells their plans to Logan, and then Logan sets his own plans in action. Um we were just discussing this, Nick, before you joined, like how great Matthew McFadden is as Tom Wormscans. What a great fucking arc. What a great fucking character. So good, so good. Saloni, what are your favorite kind of lines from the show? Do you have like favorite lines? Like, obviously you're not serious people. Uh,
Yes.
what has struck out the most memorable lines for you this season?
This season, there's this one, that episode where Kendall is giving the Living Plus announcement
Yeah,
speech,
yeah.
and then he brings up that he brings up
AV.
Logan on the screen.
Yeah.
There's a line, I don't remember it verbatim, but I think Roman says something along the lines of, "If I cringe any harder, I'll turn into a fossil." And I feel like that's such a great summary of everybody watching Succession, because there are times when it's so cringy, like that whole Living Plus thing. You're just watching like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Um, but you can't look away. You just can't look away. And that also reminds me of just like that whole L to the OG rap back all the way in season 2. It's like it's a car crash happening. What is he doing? But you just
Yeah.
like there's no way to look away. So I think that line for me weirdly it stuck because I was like, this defines my experience of watching Succession and why I love it so much. It's cringe and it embraces its cringe. It knows exactly how to twist my knobs.
I
I
have a bunch of lines which I'm going to start rattling off. But Nikhil, do you have favorite lines from the season?
I mean, I can't go beyond not serious people. I don't know how is that line perhaps the most
We are losing your
hurtful
audio,
thing you
huh?
could.
Nikhil, have you put your hand over your speaker? We've lost your audio.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
It's fully muffled. I think it's your internet connection that's cutting in and out.
No. Is it better now? Maybe Saloni can go
Yes,
first. I'll get it stabilized.
yes, it's better now. Chalo, I'll give you one line until then. There is a scene where they are in the middle of wilderness with Maxon and his gang, and Kendall and Roman first start discussing the idea of killing the deal because they've gone there to get the best price on their shares, but they first like kind of float the idea with each other with trepidation. Should we kill this deal? And
is it
Roman Roman says, yeah, Roman says to Kendall, if a deal collapses in the woods and no one hears it, is it an SEC violation?
very good. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Is it an if a deal collapses in the woods and no one's around to hear it, is it an SEC violation? Jesus, what a great
Yeah.
freaking line. Who comes up with this stuff, man?
This is
That was my favorite. Huh? Sorry?
one hell of a writer's room. There are just so many one-liners that just like they're a mile a minute on this show. It's crazy.
Yeah. Shiv says at the funeral he couldn't fit a whole woman in his head.
Yeah.
That was such a great line. What a great line.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just like 6 or 7 words that really express her relationship with Logan. And not just her relationship with Logan, her own understanding of why her relationship with Logan was this fraught because he was just a sexist, misogynist man who didn't think women were capable of doing anything.
Yeah.
This one we already discussed is there's the nightmare we shared, that dialogue
Yeah.
when she's talking to Tom and she's being vulnerable for once. Uh, oh, and one of the worst things Roman says to Shiv, and not about in the last episode, like when she announces that she's pregnant and they're in the car, and Roman says, "Oh, I thought you were just eating your feelings."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You asshole!
Yeah.
Don't fucking fat shame her now. You're
Yeah.
going to your father's funeral or whatever, wherever they were going." Nikhil, bata.
I mean, there's so many. Right? See, I honestly, I can't get beyond "You're not serious people," as I
Yeah,
suppose the one of the greatest lines ever said on television. I mean, for me, the remarkable ability of a line like this,
yeah,
you can stay, and the show has never stopped itself from saying the most disgusting things, right? Like
yeah.
every character has said some of the worst things.
There, we've lost Nikhil only entirely. So when we'll wait for him to come back, let's look at some comments. Tom was a dog. Apt name for dog also. A Tommy. Tom was a dog. No, Tom was not a dog. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
I think
Uh,
Tom and Jerry are the two people.
Tom
Yeah.
and Jerry. Let's talk about that. Do you think that was a gag that they were building towards right from first episode of season one? That we're gonna end this company in the hands of fucking Tom and Jerry?
Yeah, that's a hell. It's actually possible that someone cracked this joke and they were like, let's put this in our back
Let's put
pocket.
this in.
But it works. It makes sense, thankfully. So it's okay. They are forgiven, even if they, it was a silly joke, but it worked.
Talk to me about this scene. What do you think is happening here? Now, she says to Tom, congratulations. Firstly, let's go back a little couple of seconds. Do you think that they are in cahoots before she decides that she's going to flip her vote? Do you think they've had a conversation before this?
I personally don't think so.
Why?
I don't think they had a full conversation where she was like, "Oh, I'm going to vote a no," and you know, Kendall is not going to get it. I think that she kind of had that realization as they went into the conference room, as the vote was happening. Her brain was turning, and this has become a big thing on the internet right now. Why did Shiv do it? It doesn't make sense. I think it fully makes sense that she did it
Yeah. Yeah.
for so many reasons. To spite Kendall, whatever, fine. She's still feeling horrible that her brothers didn't include her. It's also because she is carrying Tom's child, and that
Yeah. It's the
Tom,
most calculated thing the character could have done.
She is definitely going to find it easier to manipulate Tom to some extent. Granted, she doesn't know the conversation Tom had with Lucas the night
Yeah.
before fully,
Yeah.
but I think it fully makes sense for her. I don't think they had that conversation, but I think it doesn't even surprise Tom to some extent that it happened. You
Yeah.
know, he went and told her that it's me. I'm gonna, if you vote for Kendall, I'm not gonna be the CEO. It's gonna be Kendall. And I
Yeah.
think that her brain had been churning. Initially, her response was anger, but I
Yeah.
think over time, and especially when she sees Kendall sitting on Logan's chair, for example,
And
you know,
putting
I
his
think
feet up on the table, putting his feet up on the table. I
exactly.
think that's the straw that broke the
Yeah,
camel's back.
the
Nikhil, I'll
the
add
wheel
you back in
starts
a second.
yeah, the wheels start turning, and I think by the time the conference room scene happens, it's and then I don't think Kendall even helped himself when the three siblings are talking in the conference room. He
Yeah.
didn't help himself at all.
Yeah, when Stewie shows up and Kendall is suddenly so cocky again, and Sarah Snook's Siobhan is just like,
This processing.
there's like a dark look that passes over her face. And in that moment, she's like, do I really want to do this? She didn't really care about handing the company over to Matson. She just only cared about taking it away from Kendall. Nikhil, I'm going to put you back into the stream. We're talking about this last scene. Do you think that Tom and Siobhan were in cahoots before she flips her vote? Or is that an instinctive decision she's taken literally on that spot?
think they must have. I think they must have spoken. I think
Yeah.
that they could have probably just. I don't think that they haven't spoken at all, right? I do think that they've spoken. At the
Yeah.
same time, I don't think Shiv intended to not vote. I think she
Yeah.
was in two minds. I think she was. She had. I think she agreed too quickly to Kendall being king, and when she had a moment to reflect, I genuinely actually feel that when she said that, I don't think you're the right person to lead it. She felt it, and she's right, and she did somewhere. I mean, this is so complicated, right? Like, there's no one simple explanation for why she did what she did. I think it
Yeah.
starts from the fact that she does recognize that ultimately that the like someone said somewhere, I forget who said it, but I think Kendall at some point said that the siblings may not have been together had it not been for the company. That the
Yeah.
company was the thing that kept the siblings together. And
Yeah.
now that the company was, and why? Because it was also Logan's love. That company was the thing that Logan loved the most. And anybody who would have gotten that thing ultimately was the one who would have won in many ways or some weird way Logan's, love, right? And Shiv, the one person who's had the most losses, she's never won. She's been constantly losing and losing and losing. For her to be able to, at the last minute, by saying no to Kendall, she's like, if I can't get that love, no one else can. So there is that one big emotion of, why should you be the one who gets my father's love and I never got it? So there is
Yeah.
that. But apart from that, I also genuinely think she doesn't think that, it is the thing that her father loved the most. And she does know that perhaps Tom is the one person who could possibly run it better than Kendall ever could, which is also
Yeah.
true. And then outside of all of that, there's a third emotion, which is the fact that with Tom and her being married to Tom, it somewhere still remains within her reach or grasp in some way or the other.
It's most directly in her control. If when with Kendall, it's not in her control at all. When Nikhil has dropped out again. With Tom, it's entirely directly in her
Yeah,
control because she's
yeah,
married to him and she's going to try now her level best to stay married to him, I think,
yeah.
and then have a child, and then the child,
Yes.
But then
She's
again,
a
like, see, you
maternal
see,
figure, but she's securing the bag for her kid to some extent. She's
but
not figure.
look at Tom's face in this moment also. Like,
Yeah,
he's not exactly happy with how this situation has turned out.
no, I don't think either. I think they're just going to be stuck in a horrible marriage for a long time.
And he's still a CEO for hire. He still doesn't
Yes,
own the company.
no,
Matson can still very much fire him,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
he will lose the company.
yes,
Siobhan at least has the billions of dollars, and she's now the owner of like Pierce,
yeah,
with her brothers.
yeah,
What a fucking
yeah.
car crash that is going to be. The real succession is that Shiv's having a legacy child with Tom and Tom taking over. Yep, exactly. All right. So let's see what else I have. Okay. Now I want to ask you this. Do you think
Mhm.
that Mencken will actually win? Do you think it's actually going to be a right wing government?
I have been thinking about it. I think, see, like, I fully believe that it would happen in episode 8, and we didn't really get much of a follow up in episode 9. He shows up, whatever. In 10, there's a line where Shiv is like, "Oh, I don't think it's gonna happen." The Wisconsin. Now, I feel like partly I was like, "Is this just a move?" She's
Yeah.
just seeing it because there's no way to know. Because A, these things here take time. Um, I do think like if in the darkest timeline he will become the president,
Yeah.
in like just looking at reality and what the situation has been, and if the show writers are trying to say that this is exactly what's we're kind of taking inspiration from real life, it's
Yeah.
probably going to happen, even though factually it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Those should not be counted. So it's really it's kind of how we interpret it, and my interpretation is that in the show's world it probably would happen.
Nikhil,
They,
I'll add you in now. Nitro is saying exactly what you were saying like 30 minutes ago. Took back to 2016, where this election was being counted, and not just like in America, like everyone all over the world was following this election so,
exactly.
so closely.
Totally.
All right. Nikhil, question for you. Do you think Mencken will actually become president?
I, yeah, the worst version of America is what the show showcases. I don't think that I think this is a show that is not about hope, right? This is not a
Yeah.
show about hope. This is a
Yeah.
show about the world we live in, which is at this point of time quite hopeless. There is a rise of conservatism. There's a rise of nationalism. There's a rise of xenophobia across us, and it is somewhere very much because of the capitalists. It's because of the billionaires who are very happy to put in the money anywhere that gets them more money. What a
Yeah.
tragedy it is, right? Like if the only thing that you can do with your money is to make more of it, so
Yeah.
they are that's the thing that they're all focused on. So yeah, I don't think that at any point of time was I ever thinking that this show is going to have like a happy reunion of all the siblings, or for the of America to get better, or ATN to actually do something incredible and save democracy. I don't think that was ever going to be this show. And I think
But
the
why do
reason
you
that
think they dropped that nugget in then? Why do you think they dropped that nugget in? Where like as soon as Villa mentions she's gonna get the cow print couch, and then they walk past and they say, "Oh, did you hear about the police reports?" And like Mencken might not actually come into power, and then that's it. We never hear of it again.
yeah, because I don't think that see, I mean, that uncertainty is also what the show has been driven on, right? Like anything could happen, but only the worst possible result of what could happen happens, right?
Yeah.
Like although I mean, I'm talking about hopelessness, I think there is one thing that I take hope from, and that is Roman Roy. And I think that at the end, when he says this is bullshit, you are bullshit, I'm bullshit, everything is bullshit, and the little smile on his face when he's ordering that drink that Jerry used to order, and he's sitting
Martini.
alone to himself. Yeah, I think there is hope there. I think that the hope that Succession is trying to show us is when you escape this matrix, this drive and motivation towards capitalism. Somewhere perhaps you can still make it out with your sanity intact. And I think Roman is the one that shows us this. So yeah, I feel like there is a lot that this show is trying to tell us, and you only have to read Jeremy Strong's interviews where he constantly talks about how this show relates to the world around us.
Yeah.
And I think we can take the best. The thing that we can take away from this is that you can get as much money as you want in this world, but if you don't have love in your life, you're going to be miserable, right? Like ultimately that's what it is. And the fact that Logan never chose to give love to his children, and the children were incapable of giving love to each other, and
Yeah.
that generational trauma keeps getting passed on. What is money? I mean, Kendall Roy is the saddest man on the planet, but he still is a billionaire. What is the point of it all, right?
Yeah. Uh, I'm going to let Saloni go because I know she's during the workday. It's the middle of your workday right now, and I've kind of
All
hijacked
good.
you.
All
But
good. Don't worry.
okay, lastly, मुझे ये बताओ, Saloni, what do you think is happening next for, considering we're all in a parasocial relationship with these fictional characters, which both like Tom McFadden and Jeremy Strong in their interviews are saying it's over. We are not that bothered about it anymore. It was sad
Yeah.
when it ended, but it ended many months ago. We're over it. But for us, it just ended like 2 nights ago, and we're still not over it. So
Yeah.
if you had to put them in the next couple of months, how do you think the next couple of months are going to look like for all of them?
I mean,
Where are they going to go next?
pretty horribly. I think Shiv and Tom, I do. My takeaway from that scene, for example, was that they are just going to be stuck in a loveless marriage for a pretty long time as they
Yeah,
try to navigate this new responsibility. Um, Weird kind of commentary on how Shiv became her mom to some extent because Caroline did stay with Logan for a while before kind of leaving him. So it's kind of like that. I think Kendall is just gonna it's hard to predict what Kendall might do because first I thought maybe he'll come back for revenge, but he's too freaking broken, I think, to do that.
He's just too unpredictable, that man.
He's too unpredictable. In his interview, Jeremy Strong said that in one take he tried to jump into the water.
Yeah,
Yeah, damn.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
And like the actor playing Colin like stopped
runs
him from
after
doing that.
exactly, yeah. So I think that he's too broken to try and do anything for a while. And I think Roman, like Nikhil was saying, is that one positive. Like maybe he'll get away. Maybe
Yeah,
he'll go to LA and maybe work in the movie business for all you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I envision that.
Whatever happened to that movie they were making, that big like $1 million film that they were making? What
Exactly.
happened to
An
that?
equally fucked up industry, but at least he'll fuck it up all on his own without his siblings help. So maybe that.
And Tom, you think Tom's gonna continue to stay on as
I don't.
CEO and not get
I think
fired?
he would for a while because I don't think he'd be terrible at it. Like you said, the season kind of showed that could
He's actually good at his job.
he could do well. Curious. I love that he kept Greg around to do pretty much nothing, staking his property basically with that sticker. I think he will be sticking around for a while. Maybe not the longest term, but yeah, definitely for a while. It would make sense.
It blew my mind to know that Greg earns $200,000 to do nothing. And Saloni was just saying that that's true. A lot of people make that kind of money to do
Especially
nothing.
if they're white men. It's just
That's
true.
right.
They don't have to really do anything. They have to exist.
Nikhil, your thoughts on where these characters are headed?
You know, it's I mean, I think that again Connor and Villa probably also have a really happy ending, because Connor's really sorted, right? Like he's taken himself out of the game. He's just like, I have my money, I'm going to spend it however the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Like, and you all play this game, you all break each other up. I'm already probably broken from a bad childhood, I don't want any of this. And he gets love, he gets Villa, who also in some way does like him back. And I think that's a good thing to look forward to. As I said, Roman, some way or the other, has. I think he's going to find something meaningful in his life at some
Yeah.
point. I just hope he talks to Jerry again. I hope he
Yeah.
goes and apologizes to her. I hope he just tells her that you are the only real thing in my life. And I now realize everything else is bullshit. So please come back. I think that's a rom com that I would love to see. I think for the rest of them, I feel like Shiv and Kendall, are never going to. They're still going to talk because when Shiv has a baby, Kendall's going to be an uncle. He's going to show up. He's that kind of a guy. At the same time, I don't think things will ever be the same with them, between them again. And
Yeah.
Tom and Shiv, unfortunately, I mean, I was reading also somewhere, and like Shiv's become her mother, right? Like she's become like the one woman that she never wanted to be. She wanted to be that
Yeah.
independent woman, who breaks out of this cycle, beats patriarchy and rises on top. But ultimately, there was again a whole commentary on white feminism that
Yeah.
ultimately, women who are white and their feminism is ultimately about also trying to find a way in which they, even if they don't get the power, they stay close to power. So she's going
Yeah.
to be miserable, but at the same time, her lineage is perhaps she's going to groom her own son or daughter to take over Waystar Royco whenever that happens. And Tom is just, he's a cockroach. He survived. There are cockroaches are the ones that when a nuclear
Survive a
attack
nuclear
also
bomb
happens,
blast.
yeah,
Yeah.
they are. That's Tom. And I think the reason he's kept Greg around is because Greg reminds him of himself that he'll do anything it takes, to inch to the top. He sees Greg as an outsider trying to, rise to the top inside, break into inside, and that's what Greg has done. So he's made fun of him. He's been abusive, as you said, to Greg, but Greg's taken that abuse, and he
Yeah.
still comes crawling back and says, "Can you please keep me around as you little bitch?" And he says,
Yeah.
"Of course I will, because
Yeah.
I've been a little bitch to someone else, and I hope that you be that to me." So who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe Greg gets to be CEO one day, but
A lot of
yeah, I think
people predicting Greg would become CEO now.
yeah.
It would be fucking amazing. Again, in the last three episodes, the season really picked up for me because Greg came back in the game. Somehow his scenes increased, his dialogue increased, his interactions with Tom increased. I was saying, Nikhil, before you joined, that this season wasn't really working for me until episode 8. Episode 8, 9, 10 have blown me away. And 10 has obviously like blown my mind. It's just some of the finest storytelling I've seen in my lifetime. 8, 9, 10, like up until episode 7, I wasn't really into it. I was really enjoying it, but it wasn't as great as season 1 was, that I watched and I couldn't believe that television can be this good. But Saloni, also, in your professional opinion, now we've also been looking at numbers of the people who are watching this show. This is now the most popular show on Twitter. It's been trending for many days and it's all anyone can talk about. You cannot miss spoilers from Succession. But it's barely 3 million people who watched the finale. What do you make of that as a professional
Which is
TV
also
critic?
the highest viewership that Succession has got, which is also a dent. Something like The Big Bang Theory, for example, a random example of a show that I know is popular even in India. It had what, like 15, 16 million viewers, for an episode at times. And so this 3 million feels like nothing in comparison. And it is. I think it speaks also a lot to kind of the Twitter bubble that we live in.
Yes.
It's not the real world. The real world is interested in watching weekly episodes of NCIS and CSI and stuff like that, which again, 15 million, 16 million. But those are not the kind of shows that generate a lot of content. People watching those shows don't have much to glean from it. We don't need to break down episodes of NCIS because they are
Yeah.
not nuanced as Succession. So if
Storytelling. Yeah.
1 million people are watching it, which feels fewer, this is the kind of show that does require a lot of content to consume, to talk about, it's not just a passing weekly show. So I think while the numbers are kind of insane when you compare it to other bigger shows, it's very less. It's also kind of talking in America specifically about who's watching it.
Yeah.
Kind of like the coastal elite is a very famous term here, where people on the East Coast and West Coast are watching, but are people in Central America watching a show like Succession? Probably
Right.
not. They probably are watching a show like Yellowstone, which I don't know if you guys have heard about, but is massive. Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Um, and also that show kind of leans more right wing. So it's very interesting to also understand from that perspective, or to see from that perspective how the numbers play and who's watching it, because they can either understand it better, relate to it better, or care about it better. A lot of people don't want to watch Succession because why would we watch a show about such horrible people?
Right.
Without realizing that you, like we were saying, this show makes you care about these horrible people, which is an amazing achievement. But a lot of friends have turned it off after 5 episodes, saying they all suck. I'm not going to watch seasons worth of these horrible people making horrible mistakes. So it's very interesting that that's also another reason why people don't watch it.
What do you think, Nikhil, as someone who consumes internet content and creates for the internet on a daily basis? 3 million people only watching the finale, and for us, it is such a big success. But
Yeah.
is it really?
I don't think that it is the duty of art to find commerce. I think Succession is art. It is great art. When Breaking Bad first came out, it was an AMC. Not any enough people watched it. It is only when it hit Netflix, and much later in its lifetime, the people started seeing it, and then in this fifth season, it actually became massively viral and it became a big, big, big hit.
Yeah.
Because people just couldn't stop talking about how it is one of the greatest shows ever. It's like
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption. When Shawshank Redemption must have released the first time around, I don't know how many people would it have been a big $1 million hit. No, I don't think so. Multi-billion-dollar hit. But I think after IMDb called it the number one film of all time, every cinema fan over the years went back to watch it, and I think that's what's going to happen with Succession. At this point of time, maybe not enough people know what it is or care about what it is, but
Yeah.
in the when in the test of time, Succession is going to be one of the shows that's going to be talked about forever and ever and ever. It appeals
Yeah.
to us particularly is because it does reflect the interest of those people who are in the media business. We have gone through, like, who hasn't been in a Walter like situation, so to speak. Who
We were
hasn't.
just discussing this.
Yeah,
She's saying that this is my
yeah.
biggest nightmare. She works for the AV Club.
Yeah. Oh wow, I love the V Club. By the way, I've been a big fan.
Oh,
So,
good. I'm so glad.
yeah. So I've been reading the AV Club since, like, I don't know how many years.
That's so good.
But yeah, so it's for people like us who do read the AV Club, who read IndieWire, who like,
Yeah.
I know things about Succession, and I know things about the media business. I've seen the Rupert Murdoch documentary. I've read his Vanity Fair. The big thing that came out. I've read the New York Times thing that came out on the Murdochs a few years ago. So for me, as someone who works in the media, it is so interesting to see this being reflected back at me. At the same time, as a filmmaker myself, I know this is high art. This is not. I just put up a post the other day where I was like, what it takes for people at the level at which people in the cast and crew have to work to create something like this.
Yeah.
Everyone in a crew of God knows how many hundred people to come to work and give the very best.
Yeah.
That's when you create something like Succession. It is the highest level of collaboration, the highest level of synergy. Shows like this don't get made every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think that the 3 million thing makes any difference at this point of time. In the history of time, in the annals of time, Succession is going to go down as one of the greatest shows ever made about the world we live in today. because there are shows that are that are fun and entertaining, and then there are shows that reflect the period of time, that create a legacy, that when someone in 2050 looks back and says what was happening during this time, Succession is the show
This
that's
is
going to stand out. Yeah, I mean,
it's gonna keep a slice of history for posterity, for people to look back upon the early 2020s
absolutely,
and be like, what was the
absolutely,
world talking about, what was the politics of the time, and how it was
yeah,
being reflected in the popular culture that was being created.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
getting a lot of comments here from people who are reflecting the same thoughts, that the Twitter bubble that we were talking about. Here's somebody saying that I live in Germany, and when I talk about Succession, I don't know anyone else who's watching it. Vamsi says, I go to Twitter after the episode because my friends don't watch Succession. Devansh is saying that my office and colleague are talking about Dave and How I Met Your Father over Succession. I could not stand a half an episode of How I Met Your Father. I tried it. And I gave it the old college try. But I
Yeah.
finished the first episode and I knew that moment that I'm never coming back to this show. It was just so atrocious bad. What the fuck is Dave? I don't even know what that
It's
is.
actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good.
Dave is
It's an
actually
What
pretty
is
nice.
it?
Yeah,
What
it's an
is
epic
it?
comedy about this. It's pretty good. It's 30 minutes. It's
exactly.
about this
Yeah,
guy whose biggest dream. I'm like really condensing the thing here, but his biggest musician. He's a rapper. He kind of biggest dream is to go viral, and then he kind of works towards that because he does go viral. So like, how do you sustain that? How do you become that? There's a lot
Yeah.
of nice celebrity cameos. The recent one had Rachel McAdams. I recommend for sure.
The next thing I'm really really curious to watch is Jury Duty. I don't know if you get that in India even. Do you get that in India, Nikhil?
no, but you get it where people get things in India. So I have watched it, and it's quite fun. Yeah,
Please send
but
me
like,
Jury Duty. Mohammad Masoom Rana Diwan says HBO, AMC, FX, or cable in generally can focus on long form storytelling. CBS, ABC, any network still wants to focus on shows can pick up from anywhere on TV, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like so. Succession also season one of Succession, by the way, barely anyone was watching, liking,
yeah,
anything like that.
yeah,
And yet, I'm glad HBO invested and continued making it. I
yeah.
think now, even just 5 years after it came out, it's very tough. If your first season doesn't work, even on an HBO, AMC, or FX, which can focus on long form storytelling, the TV business has changed so drastically in the last few years that if you don't have a first season now, it's really
Where is this audio coming from? There's music. Nikhil, there's like music behind you suddenly that's drowned
yeah,
out Saloni's voice.
I'm in a mall. I don't know how to mute this. How do I? Okay, I'm muting it.
Huh. Nitro is saying that Jury Duty is fantastic, but Vamsi is saying Jury Duty is on Prime Video in
it's
India. Are you sure?
It is because it's part of this thing called Freebie, which is a part of Prime Video. So I'm pretty sure it should. If you have a Prime Video account, you should be able to watch it.
Oh, I'm gonna get on this. But like this isn't this something what happened with Schitt's Creek as well? People didn't know anything about the show, and then fourth season onward, everybody was suddenly watching Schitt's Creek, and it blew up in the pandemic. And I was watching it pre-pandemic, so I'm gonna say like original OG fan.
No, it
But
was from season one, so it was brilliant to see people finally pick up on
look,
it.
this show is so great. But and then and like season four onwards, everybody just binged the first four seasons and then went on to the finale, and then it turned into this like great emotional thing.
Yeah.
One person has just recently brought up Barry as well. I know you've spoken about Barry on in your work, Saloni. Thoughts on
Yeah,
the Barry finale?
I really liked it. A little bit anticlimactic, but in a good way. They took such an Bill Hader, man. I mean, what a director! Like the next
Overall talent.
horror director, I hope. But yeah, I think they took such a narrative ambitious pivot this season and it really paid off. I really liked it. I'm such a big fan of Noho Hank. I spoke to Anthony Carrigan for this season and I think he is the breakout star of the show along with the actor who plays Sally, because Bill
Uh-huh.
Hader is a known obviously name. Henry
Yeah.
Winkler, amazing
Yeah.
name. So I'm glad that people know more about Noho Hank, the actors who play Noho Hank and Sally, and they were two of my favorite characters. So I was happy
Did
to
you
waste
did
time.
you speak with anybody on Succession? Did they do pressers? Did you get in on that?
Very rare. The only person I spoke to is the actor who plays Frank, because
How
I
fun.
absolutely loved how his character and his bond with Kendall is over the show and over
Yeah.
the season. So I really want to talk to him. He was also in the final season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I don't know if people
Gotcha.
watch.
I dropped that show like third season onward. I
A lot
couldn't.
of
I
people,
didn't like
a lot
it.
of people did.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were being so you'll see all their big interviews and all of the main cast bigger interviews in the bigger trades.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to speak to like so the Succession thing that I love is all these supporting characters who have two lines in an episode, but like crucial to the show, to the plot
Yeah.
of the show. Jerry, when season one started, was not as vital, but then like the growth is phenomenal.
Yeah. Nikhil, closing thoughts before we wrap this up. You have to unmute yourself. He's frozen only.
Nice.
So when you decide to unfreeze your face, Nikhil, I'll add you back to the stream. Saloni, where can people read more of your work and find your interviews and things?
I
Please
mean,
tell us.
unfortunately, I'm an active Twitter user, primarily for the sake of my job. So I definitely post a lot of everything that I write on Twitter. But yeah, I write for the AV Club, so I try to cover every. I consume so much TV, so I try to write about all of it. So that anything on the AV Club that has my byline on it, and like I said, I'm on Twitter at Saloni_G. So I try to tweet out my work and other nonsensical TV thoughts. I did actually have a question for you as a follow up, which is what else would you want to watch next, or what are you excited to watch next besides Jury Duty to fill kind of the TV, Succession, Barry, all those other shaped void in TV?
We have a very interesting series releasing this week in India, Scoop, Hansel
Oh,
Mehta's Scoop.
excited to watch it. Yes,
So I have those screeners. I'm going to start watching that tonight
fantastic.
because I'm still jet lagged. So I'm a little bit awake into the night. So I'm going to watch a couple of episodes of that tonight and then tomorrow. And then my review will be out. I am very excited to watch Jury Duty because so many people have been talking about it. And I really want like something funny, like a feel good something in my life. Because I find myself rewatching Schitt's Creek because that just fills my heart with joy. Before I go to bed, I'm watching a nice 22, 23-minute episode and going to bed, or two episodes back to back. And it kind of calms me down at the end of a hectic day. So I'm hoping Jury Duty will do that for me. And then I'm watching Scoop. And then honestly, it's for me 1 week at a time, what's coming up next, etc., etc. I recently watched The Heart, which I enjoyed very, very much. The Heart is very, very good. Nikhil, parting thoughts before we wrap this up. Can you see and hear us? And you are on mute.
Yes, yes. I mean, I just want to add something to Saloni's point of the fact, when you said that, you weren't liking this season so much. Like the first episode, I still felt was like okay, and then the second episode, uh, Connor, the dignity and love and grace that they gave to Connor's character,
This season, yeah.
this season, and when he says, the good thing about having a family that doesn't love you is you learn to live without it. I mean,
Yeah.
what a throwaway, incredible line that says everything about a character. That the opportunities he's not gotten to showcase who he is came out in that one line. And that's what Succession does, right? Like every character has dignity. Every character, has is given the opportunity to, like how Roman in the last scene talks about the filing cabinet guy and then kind of gives you this entire insight into Kendall's mind. The fact that he might have,
Iverson, like what a
yeah,
randomly we get to know that Iverson is like an not like Kendall's actual biological child, and they
yeah,
had to do some
yeah,
like things
yeah,
to
that
bring
he might
Iverson
he
into the
might have
world.
be he might not be able to conceive on his own, and
Yeah.
what that must have done to his head to be like a Logan Roy son who cannot have children of his own. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
so much of this. I mean, it is. Again, as I just think like, I feel so sad because nowadays TV shows are cancelled after one episode before they ever have a chance to become great. Even if you have a good one season, it's very rarely do you have, like you're talking about Schitt's Creek. The first season wasn't that great. When you
yeah,
look at Parks and Rec, all the
yeah,
way back, what a okay first season, and then it became one of the greatest shows, the greatest sitcoms of all time. Succession season one wasn't as good as what season two, season three, and season four have been able to achieve. And I don't know, when you talk about what's the next shows, like there is the Bear, which season two that I am like super excited about because season one was absolutely incredible. Andor in season one was, I think, one of the best things that has ever come out of any IP ever. So I'm waiting for that. But yeah, I just hope that there are shows that we all get to discover, like a Succession, that come out of nowhere, and then you are patient with them and you give them time and love, and then they turn out to be art. They turn out to be the greatest things ever made. So I mean, thank you, Jesse Armstrong. That's all I want to say, and thank you to everybody who was part of the show. It has been, I mean, it just it's such a humbling thing for someone who also creates things that someday maybe perhaps if I could achieve like 1/10 of what Succession is able to achieve, then my life would be successful. Like in terms of, yeah, art.
but tell me
Wow.
something, Nikhil, like as somebody who's a producer active in the kind of Hindi entertainment industry, and you're producing
Yeah.
short form content, long form content as well, what do you think about this conversation that's going around that Succession creators were adamant that they don't want to cast stars for
Yeah,
the show. They wanted to cast good actors,
yeah,
experienced actors. Sarah Snook's been acting for a long time, but nobody in the rest of the world outside Australia who knew who
yeah,
she was. Matthew McFadden has been acting forever, but no one really
yeah,
knew his name as Matthew McFadden. He's stable, everyone really. Brian Cox is a legend, but
yeah, yeah,
but here in India, when shows are being cast and scripts are being sold,
yeah,
the thing always comes up: who is starring in it?
yeah,
A lot of the movie stars are now coming onto the streaming platforms and whatever, like they should do whatever
yeah.
the hell they want. What do you have to say about that? Your thoughts on
I
that
think
as a producer?
I think it comes down to budget, and I think all producers recognize it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because the moment you cast a star, the budget also balloons up, right? So a
Yeah.
certain kind of a show requires a certain kind of star value to it. When a Fuzzy that is being made in multiple countries or whatever it is, and a Raj and DK attached who are also stars themselves,
Farzi
then
or
a Shahid,
Citadel?
I mean, I'm talking about Fuzzy in particular, then Shahid Kapoor does come on board, because you need that kind of scale, you need that kind of face value, etc., etc. On the other hand, when Rajan TK, even though they had done these bunch of really good films, they were never really, until Family Man and until they cast a good actor in Manoj Bajpayee, who may not have been as big a star as what Shahid is. They just proved that they were able to create something phenomenal with Family Man, and now they've become stars. So today they can, ask for a Shahid, and can, mount a show on that scale. So I don't think it's true in everything. I also feel like, especially when it comes to streaming TV in India right now, like you're talking about Scoop. The Hansal Mehta is the star of Scoop, right?
Yeah.
Karishma Tanna is not as big as Hansal Mehta today, and maybe Karishma
That's
Tanna
what he
after
did
this.
with Scam also. He
Correct, correct,
put it on the shoulders of
absolutely.
a complete newcomer,
Absolutely.
Pratik Gandhi.
Yeah, and Gagan Riyar, I mean, I know him through theater, and I'm so excited to see him in Scam. And,
I
I
just
mean,
watched
again,
him at the Monsoon Wedding musical in
what
New
a
York.
fantastic, yeah, what an actor.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is more scope today. I feel, at least in my interactions with streaming media companies, I think they do have a sense of now what, that sometimes the script is the star, sometimes the director is the star, sometimes the producer is the star. I don't think there is one star. I think for Succession, the script was the star. Jesse Armstrong, who's done the thick of it before, he's
Yeah.
also been on Veep. He's been, what a phenomenal writer, what a phenomenal creator. And I
Yeah.
think that HBO in season one cast people who are not, so to speak, stars, because the budget of Succession season one wasn't also that big. It's only in season two onwards that they've been able to give it that budget, because season one started a conversation which
Yeah.
HBO, as this great, place to work at and great place to create content, recognizes would could have turned into something phenomenal, which it eventually did. But I
Yeah.
do think that it's a better time right now. I don't think this in India as well, and I'm very excited to see the new stars that are created because of great stories that come on streaming.
Nikhil has frozen again a little bit, but we heard the last. No, you're back. You're unfrozen now. Yes, Severance. I want to watch Severance again. A little bit about the writer's strike from you, Saloni, because you're in the thick of it right now. You're in New York, and you've seen those people, the writers at the picket lines. A little bit about that. How is that looking right now?
Yeah, I mean, very briefly, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, to be honest. In fact, I think
Really?
it's going to probably exacerbate, because this is the writer's strike, but by end of June, the directors and the actors, both their unions are also probably, their contracts end, and it doesn't look like the studios are going to bargain. So I think not just WGA, but the SAG and the DJ are probably also going to join them on strike. The SAG,
Mm.
the actors kind of just, I think, are right now voting to say yes to the strike if the studios don't negotiate, which it doesn't look like they're going to. So I do think this is going to go on for a while, which is fine. Yeah, I've covered it. I've been on the picket line. I think, I mean, what they're asking for is so common sense that it's crazy that the studios are not willing to bargain. So it's probably
Yeah.
going to go on for a while, which will impact a lot of shows that people are waiting for.
Yeah, Severance being an example right on top of my mind and everyone else's mind as well.
Yeah.
As of right now, I am very happy that we've all managed to watch the finale, because I asked so many people, because I would just wanted to like start chatting with people about the show, and they're like, "Oh, wait, you still haven't caught up," and I was like, "Yeah." But I'm so glad I got the both of you and got you here today. Nikhil has vanished again. This has been the theme of this conversation. Saloni, as always, a pleasure, a delight. Thank
It
you
was
so
so
much for
great.
joining me.
Of
मजे
course,
आए?
thank you for inviting me. It was great. I'm always down to talk about any TV shows, but Succession holds such a special place. So I'm glad we
Yeah.
got to dissect it.
We missed talking about You season 4 this time
Oh,
around.
I know. This time I spoke to Penn Badgley too, and it was insightful.
I hate you. I'm so jealous. I am so jealous. Ben Badgley is like Kendall Roy, right? He's so wrong. Like
Oh,
that character,
oh,
Joe, so
yeah.
wrong, so toxic and murderous. But
Horrible.
like I just want to
Horrible.
hold him. Like, it's
Yeah.
gonna be okay. Uh Nikhil, who's vanished, thank you for joining me. Saloni, who's still here, thank you for joining me. Everybody who's watching, I hope मैं बार बार बोलना ही भूल गई stream के बीच में like का button दबाइए, because if you click that like button, the stream reaches more people. So please, before you leave the stream, all of you who are watching and who commented, please click the like button so the stream will reach more people and get me to 100,000 subscribers soon,
Yeah.
man. I'm working so hard.
Yes.
Thanks, Saloni.
Yeah, of course. Bye. This was great. Bye.
Bye.